You're listening to the Armchair GMs Sports Network. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another installment of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your February 25th, 2020 edition, your source for North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here from the Niagara region. You follow the podcast on Twitter at Armchair GM Pod, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Armchair GMs Network. Listen to us live right now on Spreaker.com or the Spreaker app by searching the Armchair GMs. As well, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Stitcher Radio. So wherever it's most convenient for you to listen to us, we're on all those different platforms for you. And as always, I am one of your hosts of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Capootz13 with a Canadian Z. And I'm always joined on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition by my co-host, Austin. You can follow him on Twitter at Austin_Broad. He is a contributor and writer for thechargingbuffalo.net. Austin, the trade deadline has come and gone, and the Sabres have made a few moves, and right now we actually have to look at the standings in a positive way right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird week. We were talking about a week ago how maybe they could find their way back in, and then, they lost to Ottawa, looked really good on the weekend. Botterill ended up making a few moves, cleared out some forwards, acquired two forwards that were on neither of our radars, and I don't think they were really on anyone's radar in terms of Buffalo. So it was a good week when you really look at it.
Yeah, it was. So what we're going to do today, guys, is go over the last week's games against Winnipeg, Pittsburgh, and Ottawa. Then we're going to get into the trade deadline day stuff from yesterday. We have Jason Botterill's post deadline day press conference we're going to play for you guys and kind of react to that. And then we're going to look into the new Sabres projected lines going into tomorrow night's game in Colorado. And then we're also going to look towards the upcoming Western road trip that the Sabres will be on for the next 3 games. It's going to be a tough one. So with that being said, Austin, let's take a look at last week. And going into last week, coming off that big home win against the arch rivals Toronto Maple Leafs, and looking at this game against the Ottawa Senators, you have a chance to pull within, I believe it was 4 points at the time of Toronto, against a Ottawa team that were clearly going to be sellers. And they start off great. They go up quickly on Ottawa, and then the wheels fell off. And Austin, what happened in this game?
Yeah, you said they started off quickly. Brandon Montour, 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of the game. He was looking really good. And then they get a power play, so we're like, okay, you have a chance to go up 3-0. And then the power play kind of just, gave up that shorthanded goal to Nemesnikov. Probably should have been stopped. Not probably. Should have been stopped by Hutton. I'm not really going to mince words about Hutton in this game, although he played good the other games, but yeah, you have to have a stop there, and as soon as that shorthanded goal went in, the wheels kind of just fell off, and they could never really recover. They're down. You got to within a goal again. Olsen scored a nice power play goal, but this was a game where you should have been able to capitalize on a really bad team. I mean, if you look at Botterill, if you saw the TSN feed, they showed Botterill, and he became kind of a little butt end of some jokes as he was frustrated. He was slamming his papers down because he really couldn't believe that his team was about to lose to the Senators. But this was a game where you score 4 goals, you should win. It's one of those games where, I hate to say it, but special teams obviously hurt them a little bit, but it's a game where you need a save from your goalie. I'm not saying it would have been any different if Allmark was in net, but this was a game where you could kind of look at Carter Hutton and be like, well, it sucks to blame the goalie, but this is one where he probably should shoulder a majority of the blame.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Montour in the first 10 minutes of this game, scoring those 2 goals, and then you give up the shorthanded goal to Nemesnikov, and Ottawa is actually, believe it or not, one of the most dangerous teams in hockey shorthanded. I believe they now lead the league in shorthanded goals for as a team. They're a team that works hard, and they're dangerous in these certain scenarios. And Nemesnikov, I believe, had the most shorthanded points in the league up to this point as well, scoring that goal. Couple weak ones by Carter Hutton that at this point, when the wheels were kind of coming off there, you'd like your goaltender to come up with a few of those saves to keep your team in it. And it probably was one of the best crowds Ottawa's seen all year because it was the Chris Phillips jersey retirement night for them. So for once in a blue moon, their arena was more packed than usual, and it had a good vibe going on there with the jersey retirement. So you let Ottawa get back into it with the home crowd, and I mean, it went from bad to worse as the game went on, and the Sabres tried to rally back, scoring a goal, but then Ottawa just took the game over again, and we had what we expected was coming off 3 really good wins to get yourself back in the race, and then just having one huge deflating loss that makes the fans and gives the fan base it just deflates the balloon that you were finally starting to blow up with positivity, and they just kind of always seem to have that one letdown game after they're trying to finally work their way back into it here.
Yeah, exactly. It was that letdown game. You know, you beat Toronto, you're playing good, you had a weak team in Ottawa. Special teams was really a killer. Your power play goes 1 of 4, gives up a shorthanded goal. Your penalty kill goes 0 for 2. Granted, the one penalty on McCabe was a real weak call. He was called for hooking when he did nothing but back check and put a body on his defender. But beside the point, you know, you got to kill off the penalty when you get it. But your penalty kill just hasn't been good enough. The things that are really going to help the Sabres down the stretch here are the things that let them down in this game. If you can get a timely save from your goalie when you need it, and you have decent special teams that can help make up for their 5-on-5 production, and you know, those are what's going to be the key to success. And in this game, that's basically it shows, because they didn't get a timely save and they did not have average special teams at all.
No. So that was a huge letdown, that game against Ottawa. And I really had no expectations coming in 3 days later against the Pittsburgh Penguins, playing against Pittsburgh. I was pretty confident for my fantasy hockey team starting Tristan Jarry in this game, who had the second best save percentage in the entire NHL up to this point. And I don't know what happened in this game, but it seems like the Sabres have been getting off to great starts lately. And they got off to another one here against Pittsburgh with a quick goal against Tristan Jarry that was scored by Zemgus Girgensons, I believe it was.
Yeah, 14 seconds in. This from the Pittsburgh side of it, that was a weird week for the Penguins. You know, they trounced Toronto and then got absolutely demolished by Toronto, and then get absolutely manhandled by Buffalo. Like, Pittsburgh, that was a weird week for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and if you're a fan of that team, you're like, what the heck is going on? But yeah, Girgensson scores 14 seconds into the game. Reinhart and Eichel, you get 2 more goals from them. You're up 3-0 all of a sudden. Granted, you know, Pittsburgh did battle back. They ended up with 2 goals, but the Sabres, they had an offensive explosion against the Penguins, which safe to say, same as you, I wasn't expecting it at all. I was kind of expecting it to not be a good game. You know, Pittsburgh kind of has Buffalo's number. I know Buffalo looked really good against Pittsburgh in the season opener. They looked good there. But typically, you know, Crosby and the Penguins have Buffalo's number, and this game was the complete opposite.
No, it definitely was. And I don't know what it is about the Sabres playing in Pittsburgh, but it seems like, especially Connor Sheary, which is ironic because now he is going back to Pittsburgh, but it seems like Sheary always got up for the games against Pittsburgh. He was I don't think he scored a goal in this game, but in every game that he's played against Pittsburgh, he's very noticeable, and especially the last 5 games, he has looked really good, and he's been using his speed to his advantage, and that's what the Sabres, again, I'm talking in pretense that we don't know about the trade, but moving forward, that's the type of Connor Sheary that the Sabres need to be successful, was somebody that uses their speed to his advantage. He scored a goal against the Leafs like that. He's been looking good lately, and I must say, as much as gripe as we have been giving the Girgensons, Okposo, and Larson line over the last few months, where has Kyle Okposo come out of?
Yeah, it's actually one of the things that was kind of making me laugh. It's like we uh we view the log line, as they're called, the Larson Oposo Girgensons line, as the fourth line, but all of a sudden they're starting to produce offense. They're basically the Sabres' third line. They trust Kruger trusts them in all defensive situations. They're one of the better lines at puck possession. The only thing that was really wrong with them is they weren't consistently putting up offense, and now all of a sudden, Larson, Girgensons, and Oposo, they're starting to generate some offensive chances, and now Oposo and Girgensons kind of regained their offensive touch that they once had. I mean, they're both probably going to end the season with double-digit goals, which I never would have expected. It's really fun to watch them play, and I know a lot of people were thinking, me included, saying that if someone offers you something good for Larson, feel free to move them. But after watching them play and now knowing that they're still together, I'm excited because they're one of the better lines to watch for Buffalo, because on many given nights, they kind of just take the opposing lines to the cleaners and just outwork them and out-hustle them.
No, they do, and Oposo finally starting to put up some points again. Like you said, Girgensons is on pace for a career high in goals at this point in the season, and this line is the line that got them going in Pittsburgh, and it seems like it's been the spark line for the last few games here, and this is what the Sabres need. They need these guys to come through and not just take take some of the pressure off of the Jack's line, because teams are just gonna. If they're just going to plan for Jack's line, then it's going to be a pretty easy game. But now that this line is working hard and creating goals, not just getting offensive zone time anymore, it gives the Sabres a better dynamic. And I think this is what Ralph Kruger has wanted from his team all along, is that they might not be the most skilled team, but they're going to outwork you, and they're going to do their best to get in scoring opportunities, despite not having maybe the top end talent on forward like some of these other teams do around them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this Larson line is the epitome of what the Buffalo Sabres need to do. They need to just outwork teams, except for when Eichel and them are on the ice, because Eichel's line has the skill to match up with pretty much anybody. But when their other lines, when they're not the best, they're even the Larson and Oposo line. I mean, a couple of their goals were in transition, which is it's not normal for them. They're more of a let's possess the puck down low and grind it out type of line, which is what you're going to need, especially with the acquisition of Wayne Simmons that we'll talk about later. But the bottom six, if they're not going to score goals, they're going to have to grind out offensive zone possession time and just wear down the other team, because that's the type of hockey that it's going to take to make the playoffs if they do think that they do have that chance. I mean, we'll talk about it with the Winnipeg game, but the Winnipeg game was a rather boring game, and it looks like that's the style of hockey that's going to help the Sabres have success here going forward, and it's going to be spearheaded by that Larson line.
Yeah, I mean, we can just jump right into that Winnipeg game, and they win 2-1, and it's Kyle Oposo 2, Winnipeg Jets nothing. Or sorry, Winnipeg Jets 1. So yeah. Kyle Oposo again coming through with 2 goals, 2 very timely goals against a very, very defensively sound Winnipeg Jets team. They're definitely in the race out there in the Western Conference. Although their decor might not be what it once was, they're still a very tough team to play against. Their forwards are very good at playing defense as well. They play a very good team game. Paul Maurice is a good coach for them. So it was a pleasant surprise to be coming away with 4 points against Pittsburgh and Winnipeg, especially after the letdown, giving up 7 goals to Ottawa.
Yeah, we were playing 2 games in 2 days on the weekend, and I know Winnipeg did as well, so obviously that wasn't an excuse, but typically, with the Sabres, in a second half of a back-to-back, you kind of just have the thought going in like, oh no, they're already preparing we played last night excuse, because that's usually kind of what happens with the Sabres. And like I said, the game against Winnipeg, only 51 shots combined. It was 26-25, so it wasn't super, super high event hockey. Like I said, it was kind of boring and a defensive style of hockey game. But, yeah, Kyle Oposo's line, again, comes through big. Oposo gets 2 really big goals. He's now up to 9 on the season. And aside from a defensive-minded lapse by Jake McCabe on the Blake Wheeler goal, where he just forgot how to play defense, apparently, one thing that we're going to have to talk about with this game is Jonas Johansson. I mean, I said it before. I wanted him to get called up, and then as soon as he had 3 starts, I was like, well, maybe he's not ready. But this game, he looked like a completely different goaltender. His angles were great. He was calm and collected in the crease. He wasn't really sporadic like he was in his other starts. He didn't have a slow start. Johansson was probably, other than Oposo, Johansson was the first star of this game because he made some huge saves to keep the Sabres in this game and get them a really big win.
No, he did. I mean, he made 25 of 26 saves. Very, very good game for Jonas Johansson against a team like Winnipeg, who is no slouch. So I think it was just a game that I didn't see coming, to be honest with you. Like you said, they're on the back-to-back. They played at 1 o'clock on Saturday against Pittsburgh, and then they played at 3 o'clock against Winnipeg at home the next day. So I was expecting one of those games to be a letdown, if not both, just because of how the way the week started with Ottawa. But this team showed resiliency, and because of that, they're now back into it. We have to start looking at the standings in a positive way again, Austin. I mean, it's more likely that it's going to be the third place in the Atlantic that's more catchable than the wild card, just because the wild card from the Metro is looking very, very promising right now. But the Leafs are only 6 points back now, and the Sabres have a game in hand. Florida, they got worse at the trade deadline, which we'll talk about, but after these 3 games this week, especially even after the game against Ottawa, which was a complete disaster, now they're 6 points back of Toronto, and this is actually a real possibility right now. I just think it's incredible considering how many letdowns and how this fan base has been ready to explode at points this season for how low the team has gotten and things going on with the GM and the ownership and everything else. It's pretty incredible to think that how disastrous the season has been at times, that they're currently 6 points back of a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, it's almost ironic isn't really the word that I'm looking for, but it's pretty ironic that this is the year where Sabres fans came to a head, where they were just fed up and sick and tired of the team. We were both there. I mean, it was bleak, and now all of a sudden with 20 games left, here they are, 6 points back. They're about to have 2 games in hand after Toronto plays Tampa Bay tonight. If that goes Buffalo's way, we could be talking about 6 points out with 2 games in hand, and it's slim, but it's a shred of hope. And it's, as much as people want to rag on Botterill, I'm one of them. He's not wrong when he's saying Buffalo is going to be playing some meaningful games in March, because it's not over. They're only, like you said, Toronto didn't do anything at the trade deadline. Florida traded Trocheck and got worse. Like we said, we're going to talk about it more, but it's not likely, but it's also not unrealistic. Like we are here. They are in the middle of a playoff race, and who knows what could happen.
It's just I find it incredible that they're even in this spot for how the season's gone, and I'm with you with Botterill where he says meaningful games in March, which this team has not played meaningful games in March for probably 8 or 9 seasons now. So that's why that it's so important for these kids to understand and play in situations where it's very meaningful, that playoffs are a possibility in your mind, and you're not just trying to play spoiler for the rest of the season like they've been doing. And we've always said we wanted to see Jack Eichel play in meaningful games and playoff games, because he always seems to elevate himself when playing in quote-unquote big regular season games against division rivals, or just very prolific teams, or games that are nationally televised. He always seems to step up in these games that are big games in the regular season, but whenever we talk about playoffs, we say that we would love to see Jack because we feel like he's a big game player, and he hasn't been able to show that yet because the Sabres have had nowhere close to being in playoff contention since he's been there. So before Jack Eichel requests a trade, I would like to see if the Sabres could get him in a spot where he could get them into some sort of playoff contention, where he can really show how underrated of an elite superstar player he is in this league.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all jokes aside, with Eichel demanding a trade and stuff, but it's been 5 years. We desperately want to see him playing some meaningful games, and here we are. I mean, it's like I said, it's 6 points out, so it's not like they're right there, but they're also not completely out of it. Like 6 points, when you think about it, isn't all that much. It's not a small feat, but it's also not a huge feat. So I mean, Jack's willed them, basically carried them all season to being in this position now. And now it looks like they got a little bit more reinforcements coming. We'll we'll see how the lineup looks when these new acquisitions come in and get to play in a game. But he's willed them and kept them in it for as long as he can, and now we're going to see. We're going to see. I mean, you got a big game against Colorado coming up this week, a big road trip. The schedule doesn't get any easier. So now we'll see if Jack Eichel can elevate his game and maybe get this team over the hump, because we do know he is a big-time player, and now he's finally going to get to play in some potential big-time games coming up.
Yep, and he's going to need that line that we were talking about, the Larson, Gergensons, and Pozo line, to continue to give him some support, because he can't do it all on his own.
Yeah, it's going to be big. I'm interested to see what the lines are going to look like, because we'll see what kind of support it looks like he's going to get.
Yep. So with that being said, guys, we're going to take our first commercial break on the show today, and we'll come back and discuss all the happenings that the Sabres did at the trade deadline yesterday. So we'll be right back here on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition on the Armchair GMs Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and our famous chicken wings, winners of the 2017 Reader's Choice Awards, and the brand-new recipients of the 2019 Reader's Choice Diamond Award from Niagara this week for Best Pizza in Niagara Falls. Open daily, located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery. 905-374-4400. Debit and credit accepted for both. You've tried the rest. It's time to try us. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Attention job seekers. If you're currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls. Free services include resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and check out our available workshops under our events calendar on our website for more details at www.ehc.on.ca. The Niagara Employment Help Center. Marcel Dion Inc. Come in and check out our store and meet Marcel Dion himself. We have wall-to-wall NFL, MLB, and NHL licensed products and all kinds of collectibles. We specialize in autographed sports memorabilia. If you don't see what you're looking for, just ask and we'll find it for you. So next time you need a great gift idea for that sports fanatic in your life, or you need to add to your own collection, come visit us first. You won't be disappointed. 905-357-7678, Marcel Dion Inc. Chippin' Charlie's, it's where the locals go. Fun, friendly, and entertaining staff. You're not just a customer, you're family. Lots of TVs, amazing food, and always a great time. Open daily 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. Call 905-371-3428 for inquiries and reservations, located at 8189 Lundy's Lane, Niagara Falls. Chippin' Charlie's, it's where the locals go. Mid-City Motors Niagara, your premium source for pre-owned vehicles. Financing and leasing for all types of credit. Check them out at 4460 Drummond Road, Niagara Falls, or at mcmniagara.com. They are also happy to announce Mid-City Mechanic is now open. They can repair, maintain, and service all makes and models of vehicles. Conveniently located behind Mid-City Motors at Drummond Road and Perkins Street. They will be happy to help you keep your car on the road. 905-371-2277. That's Mid-City Motors and Mid-City Mechanic. You're listening to the Armchair GMs Sports Network. All right, guys, welcome back to the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Austin back with you here. We just went over the game recaps for the games against Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Pittsburgh from last week. And leading up to the trade deadline, it was finally here yesterday, Austin. And oh boy, did we get some action from the Sabres that we weren't expecting. First, going into the day, we had discussed, are they going to be able to get a second line center for somebody if a team's willing to eat some salary and, retain salary? Would they be able to get somebody in here that has second line experience, but second line center experience. That didn't happen, but we did get an interesting first deal of the day, and without knowing what was going to happen later with their second deal of the day, with the first deal of the day, and again, I was on here with our trade deadline all day special yesterday, so I was on here with my co-host Tyler Jones, and we were going over all the trades that were happening live. And when this one came across, I thought it was a joke when I saw it on my Twitter feed that somebody had just put a fake account up. But then I turned to my right and saw on my TV that Sportsnet had been reporting it. Wayne Simmonds is now a Buffalo Sabre, and all I could say about it at the time was that Austin had sent me a text message while I was recording, and I had to mute my mic because I just started laughing because he said, "So, Wayne Simmonds." That was about the reaction of all Sabres fans, I think, at this point, was just, why?
Yeah. I mean, same thing. I saw a report from a New Jersey beat writer that I follow on Twitter. Like, oh, Wayne Simmonds isn't on the ice. I'm like, yeah, he's been rumored to be traded. Vancouver was interested. Makes sense. And then not like 2 months later, Bob McKenzie, I had Twitter notifications on, and it was Wayne Simmonds to Buff. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. I had the same kind of weird reaction. I thought about it for a couple minutes, and then I thought to myself, okay, don't hate the trade. 5th round pick's not bad. But the thing that I liked about it was this had to be setting up another move, because there's no way you're bringing in another bottom 6, bottom 3 forward without moving some out. So without a subsequent move, yeah, that trade didn't make much sense. I mean, the cost was nothing. Like a 2021 5th round pick that can turn into a 4th. I'm completely fine with giving that up for a guy like Simmonds, who does bring some stuff to the Sabres and to the game that could still be valuable and could help them down the stretch. But yeah, that same reaction I had was, what is this trade?
Yeah, it was just, I don't think anybody had expected that type of move. Nobody was talking about Simmonds to Buffalo. It just seemed like a move that wasn't going to make sense. But again, the market for Wayne Simmonds clearly just wasn't there that New Jersey had thought. The return is a 5th round pick, like you said, that turns into a 4th round pick if Buffalo makes the playoffs and Simmonds plays in 10 games. So there's definitely injury contingencies with this as well. Also, the 50% retained salary by New Jersey in this trade, as they don't really need it. And I guess the Sabres, being in a cap bind that they are, could definitely use Wayne Simmonds' salary to be half of his salary to be retained. So he's only got, this is the last year of his deal. He signed a 1-year deal with New Jersey. Although I did find it interesting that he had a no trade clause in a 1-year deal that he signed with New Jersey. I found that interesting.
Yeah, there were a few interesting things about that. That I thought was interesting, and Simmonds said it on the NHL Network after the trade that, if things go well, he's completely open to maybe coming back to Buffalo next year if they'll have him. And it was also reported by TSN that this is essentially a 20-game tryout for Simmonds, that if Botterill does like what he sees, Botterill is completely open to bringing him back, and that probably makes some people cringe. But when you really think about it, depending on what the number looks like, we're probably losing some UFA bottom 6 forwards. So if Simmonds does come in and fit well and play well, and the contract isn't, anything crazy, it's not the worst idea to bring back that guy if things go well. Like, I'm not completely against it. I'm also not completely for it either. But there was a couple little interesting tidbits that came out with this trade.
I'm definitely intrigued to see what Simmonds can do on this team. I mean, they finally have a guy that can go to the net, that can be a net front presence for them. It seemed like nobody else on the team wants to go to that dirty area in front of the net. Simmonds has always been a key power play guy back in his prime with the Philadelphia Flyers. He was always near the top in power play goals scored in the league. So again, Wayne Simmonds 3 years ago, I love Wayne Simmonds. He's a guy that I used to take in fantasy hockey almost every single year because he would hit, he would get power play points, he would get, a good amount of points as well, and he's a solid guy that you want to have on your team. Again, now that he's 31 years old, when he went to Nashville last year, didn't do a whole lot of anything, and then now with New Jersey this year, they're a bad team, but it just seems like those power forwards, when they kind of get over the hump, their decline is very steep, and it happens very fast. So Simmons isn't the player that he was probably 3 years ago with the Flyers, but I still think he could be an effective piece for this team. And something that I was digging around in, and I went to the New Jersey Devils YouTube page and looked at a few of the interviews that they did with Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and PK Subban, and just talking about how great of a locker room presence that Simmons was in New Jersey, how he was already in only a half of a season one of their leaders and one of the guys that a lot of guys relied on. He has a, as Botterill said that you'll hear in the press conference, that he has a personality that people love. He speaks his mind. He's not afraid to take guys under his wing and show them, the good things and the bad things, but also somebody that can be relatable to these kids. And I think he's going to bring some good aspects on the ice, but I think bringing a guy like him into this room that definitely could use some more veteran leadership and accountability, I think he's going to be even more of an asset in the room than maybe he will be on the ice.
Yeah, so as a writer for the Charging Buffalo, I was tasked with writing an article about Simmons and what he could possibly bring to Buffalo, and we touched on a lot of the things that are going to be in that article. His power play, they're using Risto right now, but I would just plug Simmons on power play 1 and have him stand in front of the net. He would bring another dimension to our top power play unit that we're going to heavily rely on and that we need. But the leadership and the off-the-ice things are the things that I touched on that, a lot of people, they kind of scoff at it nowadays, which is fine. I mean, if culture seems to be a buzzword, and people are either totally for it or totally against it. But when you look at those interviews that you were talking about, when you look at his trade from Philadelphia and how heartbroken a lot of those Flyers players were and how emotional it was for him and for the team to lose him, and the fact that he won the 2019 Marc Messier Leadership Award, like those are all things that you're not going to look at that and pretend that it doesn't have any value whatsoever. Like there still is value to that, whether you're a culture guy or not. I firmly believe that. And of course, the most important thing is the NHL executives and the players in the league firmly believe that. So adding Simmons to this locker room, like you said, he can be a leader. He can hold guys accountable, because we've heard from the Sabres a couple times this year. We need to be better. We need more accountability. We need to be not okay with how things are going. And I think Simmons is going to be a guy. He's not going to be scared coming into a new locker room. If he thinks guys are slipping, he's been in the league for long enough. He's going to call you out on it and hold you accountable. So for all those things, I do think that Wayne Simmons can bring some value to the Sabres team. Plus, if you look at his numbers, he's got 27 points this year. Amongst Sabres forwards, he'd be in the top 5. He's got more points than Jeff Skinner this year. He's got more points than Marcus Johansson this year. So
I'm trying not to laugh at that, but it's true. I mean, he does, and that's what that's why I found the interviews with the New Jersey players so telling, was because it's not like he had been there for a few years. He was only there for just over a half of a season, and he had already made such an impact in that locker room with top-end players like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier that I think he's only going to help this locker room with, they're always talking about how the culture needs to be changed, or it's, the quote-unquote poisonous locker room of Buffalo and things like that. I think Simmons is going to come in here, and if there are any issues, he's going to be a guy that people are going to look up to and that they're going to respect and listen to when things are going bad, and somebody that can hold himself and the team accountable as coming in as already stepping into a leadership role here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he does bring like you said, he brings things that the Sabres are lacking, and it is that accountability off the ice in some of the players, not all of the players. It's also that he's had a successful career. He's almost got 500 points. He's had a couple deep playoff runs. People really nowadays really don't like hearing it, but he plays with some physical intensity, and he even said it himself. He's a physical guy. He plays with that, I hate using this word, but he plays with that grit that you expect from a bottom 9 or a bottom 3 forward. And the Sabres, like you said, they're kind of, aside from like a Curtis Lazar and a Girgensons and a Larson, they don't really, even Oposo's starting to do it more and more, but they didn't really have that on a consistent basis. And now they do. And if Simmons can recapture some of his offensive touch, this is a great gamble to spend a 5th round pick on.
Yeah, I think if you put him on that top power play unit with Jack and plant him in front of the net, I think he could get back to not exactly what the numbers were with the Flyers, but I think that he could definitely improve this Sabres power play and definitely improve his numbers as well, as he's always been a guy that you can rely on around the net on the power play and one of the best net front presences in the entire NHL over the last probably over the last decade that is most dangerous in those areas that the Sabres don't have a guy currently that's willing to go to the net. They've put Risto doing trying to recreate the Chara in front of the net type stuff, but to have Simmons who can actually, who actually has net front presence experience that could tip pucks in and go and grind for those loose pucks and put them in. I think it's honestly after everything that happened with the trade yesterday and evaluating how little they gave up for him and how much he might actually bring to this room, I think it's a very underrated move by Botterill, and I'm honestly shocked that no other team was willing to give up more than a possible fourth round pick for Wayne Simmons, considering that Derek Grant went for a fourth round pick yesterday and a player from Anaheim.
Yeah, the only other team that was really interested and kind of had a deal in the works was Vancouver, but obviously their cap issues just couldn't, they couldn't make it work, and Buffalo could make it work. And like you said, I'm not going to sit here and say this trade is a sneaky great trade because we don't really know, but like you said, for what he brings and what they gave up, it doesn't harm you in any possible way at all. He also, by the way, he has 5 power play goals this year. That would be third on the Buffalo Sabres, tied with Sam Reinhart. So he add him to that top power play unit, and maybe, just maybe, they can become way more consistent like they were at the start of the year. And because it'll add an element where teams are kind of just taking away the shots from Eichel and Olsen now. They're still getting them off, but when you add a guy like Simmons in the net front or down low beside the net, it adds another dimension to your power play. So you can work it down low to Simmons, or you can just have him stand in front of the net with the screens or get a loose rebound. It just adds another element to that power play that teams have to worry about. Or even if you're not using Simmons, teams know he's there and what he can do on the power play, that maybe they pay a little bit more attention to him, and it leads to a mental lapse that opens up Dahlin, Olsen, or Eichel for one of their shots. So I do like the trade, and we'll see what happens down these next 20 games.
Yeah, we'll see if it works out for them or not. And then moving on to the other trade that they made, and this was obviously we didn't know about this trade after the Simmons trade, but we assumed that something had to be coming because they, like you said, they couldn't have so many bottom 6 forwards. And we got an interesting trade again. Botterill making a trade with his former mentor and Jim Rutherford and the Pittsburgh Penguins, a team that he worked for previously. And an interesting one, Connor Sheary is going back to the Pittsburgh Penguins after being traded to Buffalo 2 years ago for a cap situation that Pittsburgh couldn't get out of, along with the great Evan Rodriguez, who requested a trade with no goals being scored on the season at that point. And they go to Pittsburgh, and a sneaky good return for Buffalo in getting Dominic Cahoon.
Yeah, it's a very underrated return. I mean, a lot of people probably didn't really know who Cahoon was. Not going to lie, I only remember him from Chicago. I forgot that Chicago traded Ole Mata, traded for him for Ole Mata. So I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot he was on Pittsburgh. But I do like Cahoon. I do like what he brings to the game. I like that he's a cost-controlled forward. He's an RFA next year, so they do have control. He's a rental in the sense where he's a pending free agent, but he's a restricted free agent, so he's not really a rental. TSN called him the best player in this trade, so that's a good sign if you're a Sabres fan. I do think he is head and shoulders above Rodriguez. I know some people are kind of like, well, Rodriguez is a good player. But Cahoon is a better player than Rodriguez. Sheary might be a little bit more proven, obviously, because he's older, but Sheary's success has kind of been piggybacked on to a star player, whereas Cahoon, if you look at some of his most common line mates this year, he was playing. Jared McCann's a good hockey player, but compared to what else Pittsburgh has, Cahoon playing most common with Jared McCann and still having 27 points in 50 games is a pretty good indicator of what his success is. He's a natural center, but Pittsburgh used him as a winger, and Botterill and Kruger kind of both said that they view him as a winger. So it's not the center that we needed. So it probably means Johansson's going to go back into the middle, depending on what their lineup usage is like. But I do like the addition of Cahoon a lot. He's a very good, skilled forward. He's got the speed of Sheary, so we're not losing any speed in their lineup. Because speed nowadays is huge. So Sabres fans don't need to worry about that. And we'll see. We'll see where he is slotted into the lineup. But I really like the addition of Kahun. I thought I thought this one was a sneaky good trade by Jason Botterill.
And again, he has 27 points in 50 games this year, and I think moving Shiri and Rodriguez out of the lineup and bringing Kahun in, I think that makes you better, to be honest. And he has scored more goals over the last 2 years than Shiri and Rodriguez have combined. So I guess that's an upgrade in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at what they gave up, I know they gave up 2 players, giving up 2 for 1. People are like, whoa, like what? But when you look at what they gave up with Evan Rodriguez and Connor Shiri, Rodriguez was not a regular NHL player on the Sabres, and I don't know how Pittsburgh is going to use him, but based off of Jim Rutherford and all the talk around Pittsburgh heading into the deadline, there was a lot of talk about Shiri going back to Pittsburgh. To me, it seems like Shiri was coveted, and that Erod was just kind of security and forward depth. We'll see. They're practicing at 4 o'clock today, so we'll see what Pittsburgh has in mind for Rodriguez. But I don't imagine him being a regular NHLer in that lineup. I think Shiri was the goal, and Rodriguez was just added security depth on the Pittsburgh side of this trade.
No, he definitely was, but I mean, people can say what they want about Evan Rodriguez and saying that he was a better player than he had showed in Buffalo. I mean, nobody's going to question that he had speed, but other than that, there really wasn't anything about Rodriguez's game that I found too elite, I guess, or too valuable that to not get rid of him. Both these guys were UFAs at the end of the year. Rodriguez had requested a trade earlier in the year, so he didn't want to be here anymore anyway. That was my big thing about it. And if you listen to Jim Rutherford, it kind of seems like Jason Botterill may have pulled a fast one on him, because he said, Evan Rodriguez had played on a line with Jack Eichel at one point this season. And I'm thinking in my head, well, that's not exactly the good thing. And that was probably for, a period or two before they realized that wasn't going to work. So good on Jason Botterill and Ralph Kruger for improving Evan Rodriguez's trade value for a guy like Jim Rutherford to see, he played some first-line minutes this year. Maybe he can go and play up and down our lineup with a Sidney Crosby, or he can play on our fourth line. And as much as I want to give, Rodriguez, I'm giving him flack right now, he can play any forward position, which I guess is valuable for Pittsburgh, as they always seem to be trying to move people around from center to wing, or moving up and down the lineup. So I guess in one way, Rodriguez can be a decent Swiss Army knife for them.
Yeah, I mean, Rodriguez does have that versatility. He is a relatively good passer. He's a relatively smart hockey player. But when you look at, as I mentioned before, like off the air before, Rodriguez was a weird polarizing player in Buffalo. Some people followed him around like he was the next coming and that he deserved. I remember people saying last year, before this arbitration, before this stuff, they should lock down Rodriguez to like a 4-year deal. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? Because as valuable and versatile as Rodriguez can be, his senior year at BU, let's not forget, his production was probably bumped up a lot by the fact that he was playing with Jack Eichel and Danny O'Regan on arguably probably the best line in college hockey that year. So, I mean, yeah, he did produce at the NCAA level with Jack Eichel. He is one of Jack Eichel's good friends. He was a rather decent NHL player for the Sabres, but when you look at the upside of him compared to the upside of Kahun, it's really not super close in my mind. I mean, production-wise, Kahun has 7 less points in Rodriguez's career, but he's played like 60 less games. Kahun's probably on pace for a career high in goals. He's going to get a bigger role in Buffalo for at least the next 20 games because, let's face it, he's probably going to play in the top 6 in Buffalo. So he's going to get a chance to play with some good players. Rodriguez never got that chance here, and to be fair, I don't think he earned it because there was obvious, not a disconnect, but it was obvious that Buffalo didn't view him as a big part of their team because for the first 12, 13 games, Rodriguez didn't play. It was not until injuries happened that Rodriguez played in the lineup. So when you get a player in return that Botterill views and that is cost-controlled and is a restricted free agent for 2 unrestricted free agents that were not going to be a part of this team's future, this is a really good trade, and I'm very excited to see what Kahun looks like.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. 2 UFAs for a restricted free agent with control. So you weren't going to bring back either of those guys. Why not see what Kahun can bring? And then if you like what you saw from him, offer him a deal. He's only 25 years old. give him a 2 or 3 year deal if you like what you see, and hopefully the cap hit isn't too outrageous for a guy of his caliber. But I really like these two moves by the Sabres with Simmons and Cahoon. I think the subtractions of Rodriguez, Sheary, and Bogosian with his buyout that we haven't talked about yet. His contract was terminated by the Sabres after he refused to report to the Rochester Americans after he was waived. So his contract was terminated, and he has now signed a bare minimum deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So obviously he's going to be probably a depth defenseman or scratch defenseman for that team. And
he's in the lineup in Toronto.
He's in the lineup. Okay, well, there you go. Well, because I think Cernak is hurt, so that's probably why he's in the lineup. So, an interesting dynamic here. I think the Sabres got better this week than they were last week with Simmons and Cahoon, and losing Rodriguez, Sheary, and Bogosian. Two of those three requested a trade and didn't want to be here anyway. So I think your room is better, and I think your talent is better on the ice with the two additions and the three subtractions that you had this week.
Yeah, again, I mean, you and I had it too. We had expectations of maybe Botterill could try and acquire that second line center that they were looking for. Obviously, it didn't happen, and as hard as I've been on Botterill this year, I can't look at what he did yesterday and complain. Like, I can't. He added a low-risk, high-potential player in Dominic Cahoon. He added a bottom six forward to replace the bottom six forwards that he shipped out for virtually nothing with Wayne Simmons. And as much as people, including myself, maybe wanted to see him get something for a guy like Larson, who was probably their most valuable pending UFA, you're going to keep together arguably your best possession line by keeping those three on your roster. And who knows, maybe there is an extension in the works for Larson to keep him here as your fourth line center of the future. I have no idea. But when you look at the additions that they did and the subtractions that they did have, I do also think that they got better. We'll see if it leads to a playoff push. The schedule's tough, but as one of the biggest Botterill non-defenders, I don't bash him, but I also never defend him. I think he did rather well yesterday.
I think he did too. I mean, we all are going to sit here and say we still need the second line center, and seeing Vincent Trocheck move yesterday for what we thought the Sabres could have given him a much better package than what Carolina had given them, and Trocheck was the perfect fit for Buffalo for what they needed, and a stopgap till Dylan Cousins is ready, and Trocheck being one of the best two-way second line centers probably in the entire NHL. It's unfortunate to see a guy go like that when the Sabres could desperately need a guy like that, but after hearing that Botterill at least was in the conversation for Trocheck, you can't really fault him for that. If he felt that his deal was better, and they decided to go in a different direction, there's nothing really that he can do about that other than him not wanting to give up the farm to get Trocheck, which I was willing to give up a lot, but I guess Botterill thought better of it. So who am I to judge him on that?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I said, the only thing about the Trocheck trade that irked me was I don't ever want to hear insiders or GMs or anyone say that those trades are hard and don't happen in season, because they obviously do if you try hard enough. But yeah, all the reports that I've seen are that Botterill was confident in his offer for Trocheck, and Dale Talon just decided to go another way. I mean, ideally you'd like to see your GM get that deal done and get that car in the garage, but I'm not going to fault him. If he put forth a decent package and he thought it was good enough, at least he was showing he was trying, and I hate hearing that, because that's all we've heard is that he is trying and he's trying and he's trying. He couldn't get it done, which obviously sucks, but I mean, we'll see what happens in the summer, because at least it seems like he was willing to try something, and maybe this summer he'll be able to bring in that piece along with what else he added with Cahoon. But yeah, people are going to complain because people always complain, but the deadline, this was a good deadline for Botterill. He didn't stand pat. He held on to a couple pending UFAs that he thinks can help them down the stretch here, and he added to this locker room and added a piece for now, and he also added a piece for now and the future in Cahoon. So,
yep. So we're actually going to get you to Jason Botterill's press conference, post trade deadline day press conference, and we'll come back and quickly discuss that before we hit our next commercial break here on the show. So here is Jason Botterill's press conference from yesterday. Have a listen, and there's a few interesting things that I want to discuss with Austin about it and a few takeaways I have from it. So it's about 14 minutes long. Here's Jason Botterill discussing the Sabres trade deadline day yesterday.
For what they accomplished with us in Buffalo here. Certainly wish them all the best in Pittsburgh moving forward. I would also like to thank Zach Bogosian for everything that he did for our team and our community here in Buffalo. Certainly wish him all the best down in Tampa Bay. Certainly open to any questions you have right now.
Jason, how would you characterize the moves you made today from an overall standpoint?
Well, I think we've talked a lot about changing our forward group, adding to our forward group. Excited about bringing in a veteran player such as Wayne Simmonds. We've talked a lot about this group playing meaningful games. For Wayne, playing meaningful games in the month of March and April are something he's very accustomed to. And I think you've heard Ralph talk a lot about net front presence, playing a physical game. I think these are things that come natural for Wayne. And we also know that we have a young group. He has a strong personality, and I think his leadership is going to help our group out a lot. And Dominic, excited to bring a younger player into our mix, a player that is very useful, can play both wings, has a very good skill set, and also has a track record of success, both over in Germany, had the opportunity to win an Olympic silver medal, and had numerous times playing at World Championships. So excited to bring Dominic into our group.
Jason, how much of the past couple of weeks and the fact that they're on this 7-3 and 1 run, I think it is, how much did that change your approach going into today?
Well, I think we talked a lot about different things that would happen. You're always trying to prepare months in advance of what you're going to try to accomplish at the trade deadline. We've been very happy and are proud of how our group has responded after a difficult start to the homestand. And we understand in a young group where you're going to continue to have disappointments and challenges along the way, but how we responded from that has been very positive. And I think that's just this past weekend with a difficult win in Pittsburgh, and then also finding a way to grind out against a very good Winnipeg team. And we've talked a lot about playing meaningful games in the month of March. And I think with some of the moves that we made today, we're hopefully setting our team up to better accept that challenge.
How important was it for you to get an NHL player in a trade if you were going to subtract a pending UFA like Connor?
Look, we talked about the situation of adding, we're trying to talk to different teams about what our value was for some of our players, and getting draft picks, and then maybe possibly moving draft picks in other deals. And the way it worked out, we were glad that we were able to make trades to actually get a National Hockey League player back into the mix here, and to help our needs, especially the physical element and like I said, the sort of the heaviness of Wayne Simmonds, and just then, we've talked before about the development of our young players, our young forwards within our system. I think Dominic's a player that has NHL experience, but still is a young player that is continuing to grow.
Jason, I think a lot of people wanted to know, would you be a buyer going into the deadline? Would you potentially be a seller? And it almost feels like you kind of managed to do both. Do you think that's a fair assessment with the moves you guys made today?
Well, look, I think it's a situation like as an organization, it's time for us to continue to build and to build on, and taking the next step as a group is to understand and, like I said, play meaningful games in March. And it's going to be a difficult challenge for this group. We're heading on the road here now. When we come back, our home schedule is against some of the top teams. It's going to be a challenge, but I think it's going to be a challenge for our core players to go through with that. And I know Ralph is extremely excited about working with these guys. Ralph has been very pleased at the response from the players and the interactions that they have. And look, I think it will be a new experience for our group, but we're excited about it moving forward here. And what we tried to talk about as a coaching staff and a management staff is how do we best prepare this group to face this challenge, and that's why we made the moves we did today.
Do you expect these moves to energize the team? Do you think guys will be excited about this?
I hope so. I certainly hope so, and I think especially with the personality that Wayne brings to the mix, I think we'll certainly get our players excited. But I think you've seen that over the last couple of weeks, there's been energy with our group. And, with some of the home wins, and I think the focus that they've had in going down to the game in Pittsburgh, even the game a couple of weeks ago in New York, I thought our players were very in tune with our coaching staff, stuck to the system that Ralph wanted to play, and eventually obviously got results. So overall, I think there's a good buzz and growth with our group. Now it's important for us to continue to work on that and hopefully get the results we're looking for.
Did you get far down the road at all, getting some help down the middle?
Look, it's a situation where there's always conversations going on, and we've had this discussion on. Yeah, there's conversations, but to finally until something gets materialized, that's it. And we've certainly looked at a lot of different things for our group, but these were the moves that we felt the most comfortable with and what would help our team out the most right now.
Jason, do you feel pressure to get this team into the postseason? Is the organization feel a sense of pressure to take that next step?
Look, I think there's always pressure to win in this league. It's without a doubt. You want to have success. We understand we're not a finished product. And so these moves here, we feel it helps our team right now in going into especially this road trip this upcoming week, but just facing the month of March. But we also think adding a player like Dominic is going to help us in the future too, and trying to work from both ends from there. And the experience that a Jack or Sam or Rasmus Dahlin or Rasmus Ristolainen can gain in the next few weeks is going to be important for their development here and stuff. But the National Hockey League, you look at the parity in it. You're not looking for the big jump. You're looking to win marginal points here and there, and that's the ultimate opportunity to eventually get into the playoffs. And we can look back on, if we changed something there, we changed something there. It's small margins, and that's what our group has to understand is. For us to eventually get where we sort of aspire to, we have to do a better job in those small margin situations.
There's been so much talk the last couple of years about changing the culture here. How important was it for you to get rid of, or to move two players who were disgruntled, and why was the timing of the Bogosian move, or why at this point?
Well, I would just say with the Bogosian move, we tried to find a solution. We tried to work with him on finding a solution. It didn't materialize. I'm extremely excited that Zach has a new opportunity in an excellent organization in Tampa Bay. But from a timing standpoint, we tried to find a solution with him prior to that. I think there's always going to be discussion on the players that might not be excited about being in Buffalo or here. But we have a player here in Wayne Simmons who waived no trade to come to join our organization here today. I think in talking with the bulk of our players, there's an enthusiasm about what's being created in our locker room and just the dialogue that they're having with the coaching staff. And I think you've realized in interactions with Ralph, he's a fairly upbeat and positive gentleman. And he's excited about where this group is going. And now it's important that we continue to keep that small focus on, hey, next step, game in Colorado on Wednesday. We understand what Colorado did to us last time. We understand what talented team Colorado is. It's going to be a challenging effort for our group. But those small steps is what we have to continue to work on.
When it comes to making a trade with Pittsburgh, was there a sense, knowing of how the Metropolitan Division seems to be bulking up on players, did you sense that you could make that deal with Pittsburgh? And did the fact that all these teams were bulking up on players in the Metro, did that help you make that deal with Pittsburgh?
I think there was obviously a familiarity with Connor from there. I think it was a situation where they weren't looking to move Connor in the first place, but it was more of a salary cap situation and stuff that they had to work with. So there's always that familiarity about possibly bringing him back into the mix. But we certainly had other teams and discussions with other teams on those players that it just worked out to be the best fit from getting a younger forward back into our mix.
Jason, how tough has this week been for you? You always try to keep it even keel. We all saw the TSN shots in Ottawa. That was probably one of the toughest losses you've had since you've been here. And you go from that to maybe the season might be over and you're totally selling to last weekend where it clearly changes what you're doing. I mean, just what has the emotion been like for you for the last 6 days or so?
Well, look, let's be honest. The game in Ottawa, I thought it was a great start. I thought we were building off of what we'd done the week before, and especially the win at home here against Toronto. I loved how in that game against Toronto we faced adversity in the third period there and responded extremely well. Great start in Ottawa. Our response wasn't good, and that was certainly a frustrating moment. And just like Ralph and the players, I'm into it. I certainly want to. I want success for this team and for this organization. But I loved how our team responded And I think that's what Ralph has done a great job with this year, is just when things haven't gone well, we've been able to find our game again there. And you look at the fact that I thought we played extremely well after a disappointing November, sort of the start of December. I thought we played extremely well. I thought it was a great job after the New Year's Eve loss to Tampa Bay of getting our group refocused there again. And let's be honest, the homestand here didn't start off the way it did, and Ralph was able to get the group back on track from that standpoint. So it's been great to see that resolve. You'd like to now see more consistency throughout the whole process. But we understand there's always, we talked about parity in this league. There's always going to be a lot of emotions, especially around this time. And with this group, you see the potential. And I see the dialogue that our players are having with our coaches and our staff, and you want to see them have success. And I'm happy today that we were able to make some moves that I think puts us in a better position. And now we'll see how we progress here for the next month or so.
Mike said,
A couple of related things. Anybody going to the Amerks, like, for transactions?
From a transaction standpoint, our goaltender, Jonas Johansson, we made him available, and then also John Gilmore.
And what is, I know you shaved some money with these deals. How does this affect the cap going forward? Do you expect to be under that overage spot? Or?
The way we will look at it now is, so with our injuries that we had throughout the year, we talked a lot about what we were going to do from that standpoint. We will have an overage at the end of the year. From our standpoint, we didn't want to break this team apart, and we just didn't feel it was the time from that standpoint. We looked at different scenarios in our planning perspective, but we know we're going to have an overage for next season. But on the positive side, the overage is coming because our young defensemen continue to develop. And to be honest, we hope our young defensemen hit all their performance bonuses, because it means that they're going in the right direction with their games.
As Mike had said, Jason, I mean, it has been a tough stretch, kind of a roller coaster ride of a season. There are a lot of fan frustration in this marketplace, a lot of it directed, quite frankly, at you. Do you understand where that comes from?
Look, I can understand where it's coming from. I understand the history here and stuff, but it can't interfere with how I make decisions for this organization, and it can't interfere my interaction with Ralph and with our players. And that's what it's good to have, executives around me such as Randy Sexton and Steve Greeley, who have very good perspective on things and have gone through, especially someone like Randy who's gone through things in different stops where he's been with. And everyone looks at my previous time in Pittsburgh and thinks it's all, you win a few Stanley Cups there and it's all good. But you also went through processes there of, coaches being fired and disappointment and not meeting expectations. So you've been through the different things like that. The bottom line is in the National Hockey League, it doesn't matter which market. There's going to be pressure, and there's going to be high expectations. And as a group, we have to continue to focus in on what Ralph has talked about improving every day. And I think our group has done a very good job with that, and that was our focus today on making our moves that we did. We think this will help our group.
also plays center. I mean, you said he plays both things.
Yeah.
He also plays center.
It's possible he can. I would say that right now I view him more as a winger than a centerman, but it does give options to Ralph to play him in different spots throughout the lineup.
There was a report out there that Wayne Simmons might be interested in signing a contract extension. Have you at least has he broached that with you, or have you broached that with him, and what is your interest in that level?
Look, I talked to Wayne just briefly when he came to the organization. I talked to his agents just about the situation before, and our understanding is certainly there's no contract in the mix or anything like that. The focus right now is on sort of what our plan was, for the next few weeks here, and what our sort of focus was going to be for today. You know that our numbers. We certainly have openings moving forward here. We're certainly going to have opportunities and roster spots available. And I think that's what he's looking for. He's looking to play meaningful games, and then he's also looking for an opportunity. If he plays well, there might be a future. But our focus right now with Wayne is just, hey, what we have going on here right now. And just as Ralph likes to keep things small, we'll keep it small with Wayne here.
Okay, so there was Jason Botterill's trade deadline day, trade deadline day scrum. Austin, a lot to take from that. What are some good things that stuck out to you about that? I wrote down a few things here, but what did you like from what Botterill's responses were yesterday?
The one thing I'll tell you what, it's probably going to be surprising, but the thing I like the most is that he understands the pressure from the market, but he's also not going to let the pressure from the market dictate how he acts as a GM. And I tell you the reason I really like that is it kind of seems the opposite of the Tim Murray approach. And I love Tim Murray because he got moves done, but I also feel like Tim Murray was the GM that wanted to appease the fans. I like that Botterill understands that the fans aren't happy, but he's also not going to make rash decisions just because the fans aren't happy. So it kind of he gave the team a vote of confidence, the group he has here, and I'm not 100% keen on that because of obviously we're not in a playoff spot, but we're in the playoff race. So I like that he was understanding that there is pressure from the fans, and he understands why there's pressure from the fans, but he's also not going to be allowing himself to make rash decisions.
Yeah, he also talked about Pittsburgh wasn't always the positive, coaches being fired, high expectations not being met, so he understands what it's like to go through that, but I think him just acknowledging that he understands what the fans are saying, but he can't let that affect his job. I like that answer. I think it's good because, I mean, obviously the fans have been pretty brutal on him and the entire organization at points this season, but like there has to be a sense of desperation, but at the same time, you can't just go and make emotional decisions for the sake of trying to appease the fan base, although they've been suffering through 9 long years of this now and are waiting and deservingly so for a winner. It's tough, but you have to keep the ship, going in the right direction. And with the moves Botterill made yesterday, I think he's I feel better about Botterill after yesterday with the moves and his press conference yesterday than I think I felt about him all season long.
Oh, 100%. Like, I'd gotten into countless, we'll call them arguments, heated discussions with my dad, who is a Botterill guy. He says that, like he's trying all this stuff, and I've gotten into heated arguments because I feel like Botterill needs to be doing more. But after yesterday, kind of climbed down off the ledge a little bit. I do like the moves that he made yesterday. I liked his responses and a lot of things during that press conference. So while I'm still, I still completely, everything that the fans said this year was completely justified, and their unhappiness with the team and the organization, it was all completely justified. And I'm not saying that it wasn't because we had the same feelings. But after yesterday, yeah, I'm coming down off the ledge a little bit. I do like the moves that Botterill made, and it's something we'll never know, but I also like to believe that Botterill had some conversations yesterday that could come up again and maybe come to fruition in the summer, potentially, to get what the Sabres are missing. So, from everything that I've heard and everything that's been reported, Botterill was active yesterday, was not happy about Trocheck being traded to Carolina, and he responded with a couple of good moves, and we'll see if anything else can come up in the summer, and we'll see if the team can make a run here down the stretch.
Yep. A few other things I took away from it. He kept there had to be probably a tally going for how many times he said playing meaningful games in March, and although we laugh at it, it is true that's one of the main things that he wanted to do was bring in Simmons, who has played meaningful games in March, been in playoff series, and knows what it's like to be playing at relevant times in the season. So I like that. He also touched on Dominic Cahoon being a silver medalist for Germany, that he could also help in the future. So he's not opposed to keeping Cahoon around, being a restricted free agent. He likes the personality of Wayne Simmons and what he brings with his leadership to the locker room. He also talked about we are not a finished product yet, so that's an understatement. He also talked about trying to find a solution with Bogosian, which I found kind of funny because I'm kind of glad that they didn't find a solution because obviously he didn't want to be here, and he was really, if anything, holding other defensemen back on this team from playing more minutes. So honestly, I'm kind of glad that him and Bogosian couldn't find a solution, and he's better suited in Tampa Bay playing with them. I guess he's in the starting lineup tonight with Eric Cernak being out, so good luck to Bogo, I guess. Off the ice, I guess he was a good guy, but as far as his play on the ice and his tenure with Buffalo, filled with injuries and expectations not being met for a guy that was drafted so high and somebody as highly touted as he was.
Yeah, I mean, The Bogosian thing, like you said, I agree. I'm glad that this decision, like the way it went down, is the way that it went down. I mean, obviously, we would have liked to see it happen earlier, but he's coming off the books. He's playing for Tampa Bay. Who knows what will happen there? So that's good. But one thing that I think a lot of fans that I've seen today aren't thrilled about, and I don't know if it's a guarantee to happen, but Botterill seems to think that it's going to happen, is that Buffalo will probably, in Botterill's eyes, accrue a little bit of a cap overage penalty next year, which means they'll have a little bit less money to spend because of the Cahoon trade and the bonuses that guys like Cahoon and Dahlin and Yoki Haru will likely hit this year. So I know fans are a little bit angry about that because obviously when you have all the cap space that Buffalo's going to have next year, you want to be able to use all of it, and doesn't seem like they're going to be able to because of the impending cap overage. So that was one thing that I'm not going to say I liked and I didn't like, but that was probably one of the bigger takeaways from the press conference, because from the outside looking in, it doesn't look great because Botterill was dubbed as a cap genius, and here they are going to accrue a cap overage. But, I mean, maybe there's other things at play. I don't know if it's a guarantee that they are going to hit their bonuses, but I think it seems likely. So we'll see. But that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, he was talking about the overage part, but I'm okay with it, honestly. I mean, getting Zach Bogosian off the books when he clearly didn't want to be here anymore. I'm just happy that whole scenario is just gone, that black cloud being hung over their heads, and we can just move on from that. Bogosian can move on. And I think, like I was saying earlier, I think the morale in the locker room is better today and this week than it was last week, with Rodriguez and Bogosian still being here when they had asked for trades earlier this season.
Oh yeah, you got to assume the morale is definitely higher, and the additions that they added are definitely going to help that. Cahoon's going to join the team tomorrow, so he wasn't there today, but Wayne Simmons practiced today, and he kind of seemed like he was fitting right in. I saw some videos from Matthew Beauvais from Channel 7. Simmons went up to Dahlin and, gave him a smack on the butt, and they started laughing together. So it seems like Simmons is fitting in well. This is a random, interesting thing, but Wayne Simmons is wearing 17, which I thought was interesting because, Vlad Sobotka is still on this team, but they pulled his number away to Wayne Simmons. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I guess that means Sobotka will not be coming back this year, unfortunately, to be Buffalo's number 2 center, unfortunately. And Cahoon will be wearing number 95, which is an interesting number. I don't remember the last time anybody wore number 95 on the Sabres. I'll have to do some digging for that. But the last thing I want to say is that Botterill said, "I see the potential in dialogue with the players and the coaches." So I think with the new players that he's bringing in, I like we're tying into the morale thing, I think it's definitely going to give them a little bit of a boost. And with the players that they brought in, the players that are currently still there might think, okay, we're adding. We weren't exactly selling, but we were making trades to try to improve, to be better, to try to play meaningful games in March, and to try to make the playoffs here. So I think it gives a morale boost to the new guys that are here, but also that the guys that are still here with this team, giving them some confidence, and the organization showing confidence in them that, we do have a chance to make it here, and we are trying to better ourselves and getting rid of the people who didn't want to be here anymore. And I think that's going to go a long way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt Beauvais from Channel 7 kind of said it best yesterday. Botterill found a way to buy and sell all at the same time, which I thought was a really good approach for him to take because, he did sell off some pending UFAs, and he did buy a UFA in Wayne Simmons, but he also was able to buy Dominic Cahoon, who is a restricted free agent. So he found a way to do a little bit of both. I like the approach at the deadline, and if this is the approach that Botterill is going to take at the trade deadline, it kind of gives me a little bit more confidence going into the summer with what he's going to do, and maybe at the draft floor that team-altering trade will be made. But all in all, for a trade deadline, Botterill's approach I thought was really good. I liked the way he handled himself at that press conference. He didn't back down from questions. He didn't seem as robotic as he did at his other media availabilities. There weren't the same old sound bites that we heard. He didn't really sulk either. You know what I mean? Like he kind of did at his other ones. I'm still looking for forward help. He kind of seemed like he was just down in the dumps. He seemed completely different at that press conference, so that was good to see.
You seem more confident for sure in the group that he has. So with that being said, guys, we're going to take our last commercial break on the show today, and we'll come back with the outlook for this upcoming Western road trip, 6 points out of the playoff spot, and look ahead to the new line combinations at practice today. So we'll be right back here on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition on the Armchair GMs Sports Network. The Blue Line Diner is Niagara's leading breakfast restaurant. Great food, great service, and where else can you see one of the NHL's greatest players having coffee and conversation with patrons? Of course, Marcel Dion Inc. is located directly next door, and Marcel is always in and out of the restaurant, talking to the kids and the fans that walk through the doors. Open Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. 289-296-8785, the Blue Line Diner, located on Montrose Road, Niagara Falls. Simply Fit Health Club, real 24-hour access, 7 days a week. Located at 6595 Drummond Road, Niagara Falls. A clean, modern facility with top-of-the-line equipment, a friendly and non-judgmental environment, free Wi-Fi, ample parking, and more. Come in and tour their facility anytime during their office hours. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, Saturday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Sunday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Don't hesitate to stop in. No appointment necessary. They take pride in helping their members reach their health and fitness goals at their convenience and for the best possible price. For only $9.99 bi-weekly, members will get access to the state-of-the-art facility any day, anytime. What are you waiting for? At Simply Fit, there are no excuses, only results. Come see for yourself, 289-296-9535, or info at simplyfithealthclub.com. Simply Fit Health Club. Michelangelo's, Niagara Falls' premier sports kitchen and bar. We're all about food, friends, and fun. Catch the game with us and grab a delicious bite to eat while enjoying a cold beer. Bus trips to sporting events, live music performances, and sports pools throughout the year. Open daily 11 a.m. to midnight and 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Michelangelo's, Niagara Falls' premier sports kitchen and bar. Canadian Wrestling Figure Store. Check out their website at cwf.ecwid.com for the best selection in Canada for WWE Elites, Basics, and exclusive action figures. Free Canada-wide shipping on any order over $200. Enter the code ARMCHAIR at checkout so they know that we sent you to receive 10% off your order. Once again, that's Canadian Wrestling Figure Store at cwf.ecwid.com. Attention employers! Finding the right candidate to meet your hiring needs requires more than just posting an advertisement and waiting for a suitable candidate to apply. Let the Niagara Employment Help Center save you valuable time and money by making your hiring process easier. Free job postings, fill job vacancies quickly and efficiently, access to a bank of potential employees, reduce employment costs, all candidates will be pre-screened, job trials and placement incentives, and financial assistance may be applicable to offset the cost of training. Again, this Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls. www.ehc.on.ca. You're listening to the Armchair GMs Sports Network. Alright guys, welcome back to the final segment of today's Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Austin back with you here for our final segment of today's show. And Austin, we've talked about last week's games, we talked about the trade deadline, the moves that were made. Now it's time to implement these new moves and see what's going to go forward with this team. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited about to see what this new look forward crew is going to be, especially for these next 3 games, tough games on the road coming up here. So as far as the road trip goes, it's going to be starting off with the Colorado Avalanche tomorrow night in Colorado. Wednesday, we're recording this on Tuesday, so tomorrow night in Colorado. And then from there on Friday night in Vegas, so I'm sure the players will have a fun night out there in Vegas. And then the following night in Arizona. So Austin, what are we looking for here from the Sabres coming out of the trade deadline? And I know you were telling me during the commercial break that Colorado does have some key injuries for tomorrow night's game. So what are we looking for here?
Yeah, so obviously everyone knows that Rantanen's out, but I was on Twitter and I saw an update that Kadri is also banged up a little bit, but Burakovsky is likely not going to play tomorrow as of right now. We'll see what happens, but when you look at their lineup, obviously Colorado's a really good team. They added Vlad Nemesnikov. They have Nate McKinnon. They have Gabe Landeskog. I'm looking, based off the injuries, and I know the last game was 6-1, but it wasn't really a great displayed by the goaltending in that last game against Colorado. So based off all the injuries, depending on Cahoon's joining the team tomorrow, and he said that if he can play tomorrow, he's going to, but if he can't, he's obviously going to make his debut Friday. So I'm hoping Cahoon gets to play tomorrow because maybe I'm crazy and maybe I'm running off a high, but Buffalo's won 6 out of their last 8. Colorado's banged up. This is a game where you at least need a point. But it's not completely out of the realm to think that maybe, just maybe, Buffalo could pull it off.
Yeah, you'd hope so, especially, they talked about how they lost 6-1 the last time, but I think they're going to come, I have a feeling they're going to come out with Simmons, and if Cahoon plays tomorrow, I don't know if he's going to be playing, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think the team has been given a boost of confidence here with the moves that they've made, and I think them knowing that they're only 6 points back, especially after tonight's game, if Tampa Bay beats Toronto, like you've been saying earlier in the show, 2 games in hand on the Leafs, 6 points back, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, that's the thing. And depending on this Tampa Bay Leafs result tonight, like if Tampa Bay does win and Toronto gets no points, tomorrow becomes even, or Wednesday, I don't know when this will be released, but yeah, Wednesday becomes even bigger for the Sabres because then you have a chance to get within 4 with a game in hand. So obviously scoreboard watching, it's awesome to be scoreboard watching. I'm going to add that because it's been a while since we've been able to scoreboard watch, but we'll see if things go Buffalo's way tonight. Tomorrow is huge, and based off of, maybe this, the new acquisitions give them a little confidence boost. Colorado's banged up. This would be it could be potentially the biggest game of the season for Buffalo because it could be a massive win if they find a way to pull it off.
It's nice to look at the standings looking closer to the playoffs than it is looking towards the bottom and where we're going to be looking as far as lottery chances go. So it's been a long time for the Sabres since we've been able to look at it in a positive way. And I'm looking at these next 3 games here this week, Colorado, Vegas, Arizona. If they come out with 4 or 6 points here, I would be ecstatic. Even 3 out of the 6 points, I think, is a successful road trip. I think Colorado's still going to be a tough game. Vegas, we know how tough it is to win in that building. Arizona, to me, that's the game that you're circling on the calendar and saying that should be a win. I know Arizona has looked good at times this season. I know they have Taylor Hall now, and they do have some threats on that team. But out of Colorado, Vegas, Arizona, I look at Arizona and say the Sabres always have a good crowd in Arizona as well, so it's kind of almost half of a home game for the Sabres when they play in Arizona. So that's the game that I'm looking at, and if they can sneak a point out of Colorado or Vegas, I would still be content with that just because of how tough it is to play both those teams, especially on the road.
Yeah, so I like that you said that. If they get 4 of 6, I will be extremely ecstatic. I was in the same boat as you. 3 of 6 points. It's not great. People are probably not happy to hear that, but when you're playing Colorado and Vegas, they are 2 of the NHL's premier teams, I'd say, because they're both that good. And Vegas especially got better at the trade deadline. 3 of 6 points would be huge. If they can find a way to get 2 out of 3, that gets them to 70 points. The week after isn't looking. I mean, I know they're playing Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but they've had success against Pittsburgh. So the week after, if you find a way to get 4 of 6, even 3 of 6, the week after looks like a chance where they could gain some more ground. So I think 3 of 6 points over the next 3 games would be a big success for the Sabres.
Yeah, these are 3 really tough games on the road. So people are going to, if the Sabres lose these 2 games, we're out of it again. Well, we talked about how the 9 out of 10 game stretch was their chance to pick up points against weaker teams. Now you're getting into the beef of your schedule against these really, really good teams, and that's why you needed the buffer from those previous 9 games was to give yourself, I guess, more of a mulligan against these types of teams. But now that you're 6 points back, the team's not going to go in there and say, we're hoping that we can just pull out a point here. I think that they're going in, unlike us, the fans, where they think that they can win these games, and I'm glad that they think they can win these games, because if they want to get anywhere close to Toronto in this playoff push, and even Florida, who definitely got worse by trading away Vincent Trocheck, in my opinion, they're closer to them than the Leafs, but then they have to leapfrog them to get to Toronto. But I don't see that being that big of an issue. But Vegas and Colorado, like you said, two premier teams in the league. I'm happy if I can pull out 1 point out of either of those teams.
Yeah, exactly. And also, wouldn't it be the most Sabres thing ever to kind of stumble in the easy 10-game stretch, but then kind of surprise everyone in the 10-game difficult stretch? I mean, not saying it's going to happen, but like that would just be something that this team does. It's like, because they're so frustrating, because they play good and then they tank, and then they play good and then they tank. So it would not surprise me if somehow, some way, they did manage to get 2 out of 3 over these next 3 tough games, because that's just what it is as a Sabres fan. It's the easy games are never easy, and for some reason the difficult games, they have a way of staying in those and stealing them every now and then.
Yeah, and they've already started this tough stretch. The win at Pittsburgh was huge, and the 2-1 win against Winnipeg is big too. So those are 2 good teams as well. So they've already started off with 2 really good wins here. So I'm interested to see coming out of this next week where the Sabres are going to be at and where the Leafs are going to be at, because they don't have an easy schedule either. I mean, they have to play Tampa, I think it's 3 times in the next couple of weeks. So they've definitely got a tough schedule as well there. So neither team is really getting an easy chance to pick up points here in the next week or so. So I'm really interested to see how both teams come out of this stretch here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Toronto, they got Tampa tonight, Florida on the 27th, so that's kind of basically just hope it doesn't go to overtime game. And then Vancouver, but they have 5 of their next 6 on the road. Yeah, their schedule is not easy either, and it's really weird because after the events of last week, the moods of the 2 fan bases have kind of flip-flop for the most part. Like, Sabres fans, we're not saying we're making the playoffs, we've kind of let ourselves hope a little bit, which is good because that's what this fan base needs. But the Toronto Maple Leaf fan base is kind of just they seem like they're done. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with these 2 teams over the next 20 games.
No, definitely. So looking at that, we have the projected lines for today at practice, and Sneaky Joe from WGR, I think he posted the lines that I'm not sure if these were the projected lines or these were the lines that he wanted them to see. But
yeah, he posted the lines he wants them to see, but Paul Hamilton did have the lines that they were practicing with, and once Cahoon gets there, they'll be a little different, but the Eichel line is the same. Obviously, the Larson line is the same, and it was VC and Frolic centered by Lazar, and then Skinner and Simmons centered by Johansson. Now, obviously, Cahoon isn't with the team today. He's joining them tomorrow. So, in a perfect world, if it were me, I would throw Simmons where Frolic is and just have Frolic sit on the bench and then have Cahoon be the winger on that Skinner and Johansson line. But that's just my preference, and that's what I would like to see. I'm not sure what Kruger is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting that fans really want Reinhart to try to center that second line and try to spread out the wealth a little bit. I don't think Simmons is going to be playing with Jack. He doesn't have the speed to keep up with him. So I'm not necessarily against them not putting Simmons with Jack because he just doesn't have the speed to keep up with that line. I'm okay with it on the power play as they'll be setting up in the zone like that. But as far as not being on the same line with him, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, Simmons should be used with VC and Lazar. I think that's a relatively good 3rd or 4th line. You have VC who can provide some scoring. You have Lazar who's a pretty good, crashing bang guy down in the offensive zone. And you have Simmons who can provide a little bit of everything. Obviously, the Larson line is good. So I just think keeping the Jack line together, obviously they're your best line, and throwing Cahoon with Skinner and Johansson gives you a second line that at least possesses the skill of a NHL quality second line. So we'll see what Kruger does. Like I said, in a perfect world, Cahoon would be on that second line, and Simmons would just take the place of Frolic, and Frolic would go to the press box because, I mean, Mikhail Frolic has been nothing but a disappointment since joining the Sabres.
I actually thought that he would be one of the pieces moved yesterday. If they were moving out forwards, I could have seen them moving him out. But I'm really glad that they did not break up the Opozo, Larson, and Girgensons line because how good it has been lately, and I would hate to see that line be broken up by somebody moving down.
Yeah, exactly. That's why like I said, they've essentially become the Sabres' third line because now they're putting up points. So now it's almost like I can get something out of this line. I can play them a bit more. So yeah, I'm glad that line's not broken up. I think Simmons is that. I think Simmons, I don't know, if I was Botterill, I'm bringing in Simmons to replace Frolik because it's relatively obvious that he would be an upgrade over what Frolik has given Buffalo so far. So in a sense, where else do you slot Cahoon? Well, Cahoon slots in on that second line. In a perfect world, I would try Cahoon at center because I think Johansson is a much better winger than he is center, but obviously the team views Cahoon as a winger, and it looks like Johansson's staying at center. So if that's the case, surround Johansson with as much talent as possible and hope for the best. And to me, that's putting Cahoon and Skinner on his wings.
Yeah, and we don't know if Cahoon's going to be playing tomorrow. Like you said, he's joining the team tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to throw him into the game right away, but right now, that Skinner, Johansson, Simmons line is interesting to me. I don't know. I want to see how that, if that is the plan going into the game tomorrow against Colorado. I'd like to see how the Johansson, Skinner, and Simmons line works before they go ahead and put Cahoon on that line or move Simmons off the line. I don't know. It kind of intrigues me, as like you said, Johansson, much better of a winger as far as production goes than being a center because he's not a natural center, and they continue to play him at center, but they really have no other option since they don't want to move Reinhardt off of Jack's line for some reason and try him there. That we've beaten a dead horse with that idea, and it's clearly not happening. So I don't know. I think I'm looking at that Skinner, Johansson, Simmons line as a wild card there for the Sabres, and maybe Skinner, he finally scored the other day, and maybe he's finally turning a corner. Maybe having a guy like Simmons on his line to go and grind and get the puck and help out. Maybe this could be a sneaky good line here tomorrow night. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Cahoon is not playing tomorrow, the lineup that they had today would be my ideal lineup. But if Cahoon is ready to go and he is playing tomorrow, to me, it just, in terms of setting up your lineup optimally, Cahoon should be on that second line. But if he's not good to go, yeah, for sure, Skinner, Johansson, and Simmons could be something that's a little bit intriguing. I mean, Johansson is regarded as a setup guy. He's a playmaker. Skinner is obviously a finisher, and he gets to the prime scoring areas. And Simmons just lives at the net front, so that could be an interesting lineup depending on what is Cahoon's availability tomorrow. So I don't know if the Sabres will have a game day skate tomorrow. It seems like lately that they never do, and Kruger even talked about trying to get rid of those, so I'm not sure. But I almost hope they do, just so we can get a little sense of what Kruger is thinking with the lineup if Cahoon is in fact ready to go tomorrow.
Yep, and if he is ready to go tomorrow, I'm with you that Frolik should probably be the one in the press box. VC would probably be my second option because obviously, like we said, the Pozo, Girgensons, and Larson line, you need to keep that together right now. So if somebody gets moved off the lineup for Cahoon tomorrow, I'm expecting it to be VC or Frolik, and first choice would be Frolik as he just really hasn't been what the Sabres thought that he might be coming into the lineup so far. So I think Simmons dropping down to the third line or whatever they consider it, the fourth line at this point, I think that looks a lot better than Frolik in the lineup. It looks better with Simmons and Cahoon on that right wing.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at VC compared to Frolik, yeah, it's clear that Frolik should be the guy to sit out. When you look at, I talked about it in my Simmons article today. One of the points I talked about Simmons was, hey, he's better than Frolik. And when you look at the numbers, he is way better than Frolik. And VC is also head and shoulders above Frolik. So hopefully that the coach and the organization kind of identified that, and that's why they brought in Simmons. And we'll see. I hope Frolik is the one to sit out because VC, although he hasn't been as productive, his numbers are a lot better than Frolik's, and he at least brings something to this lineup.
Yep, he for sure does. One other note from Paul Hamilton, Colin Miller is out today with personal reasons. That's why he was not on the defense combos today, but he should be good to go for tomorrow night's game. But I'm really liking what quickly before we end the show today, the defense without Zach Bogosian there, I think it looks a lot better without having a guy that really didn't want to be here and was probably your worst defenseman that was in your lineup at multiple times this season. So I think everybody else that was underneath him moving up is definitely in a better scenario, and I think the D-core is better today without, completely bashing Zach Bogosian. Just his play on the ice just wasn't getting it done for this team anymore, and moving guys up like Lawrence Pilot, I think is definitely an improvement than having Bogosian in the lineup for somebody that didn't really want to be here anymore.
Yeah, getting Bogosian out of the lineup and out of the locker room was definitely a good addition by subtraction. It puts forth, as long as everyone's healthy and everything's good with Miller's personal day, we don't know what's going on there, but as long as everything's good and everything's healthy, it allows them to put forward their best group of 6. I like Miller and Dahlin together a lot, so I'm hoping Miller is good to go. So, yeah, we knew there was a logjam on defense. They got rid of Bogosian, they got rid of Scandella. And, there's still some players here that not everyone's super thrilled about, and maybe they'll be gone. But when you look at the way the Sabres are performing lately, you can't complain. They've won 6 out of their last 8, and it looks like they're going to at least try and make a run at this and get as close to the playoffs as they can.
Yep, the lines look better to me than they did 3 days ago, and the D-core was always looking solid to me, getting rid of Bogosian in there, which I thought was the weakest link along with Scandella. It definitely looks like a lot better of a roster than we had probably 3 months ago that they were putting out on the ice. So I'm definitely happy about it, and I'm really looking forward to what this next week brings, as I'm sure you are, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. This week, again, it's actually good to say it, but we're probably going to say it a lot depending on the results. But this is another big week, and right now, the biggest week of the season. They were up to the test last week. Let's see if they're up to a much tougher test this week.
Yep. So that being said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source for North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here from the Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Kapoots13 with a Canadian Z, and you can follow my co-host Austin at Austin_Broad as well. Check out his article on thechargingbuffalo.net that he wrote today. Very good read about Wayne Simmons, and a big thank you to all of our great sponsors who put us on and support our network to keep the show on the air. And finally, to you viewers out there for tuning in and listening along with us for this episode. This has been the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition on the Armchair GM Sports Network by sports fans, for sports fans. Enjoy your late night Sabres games this week, guys.